Hi, I'm Dr. Polosi, talking to you today from a different office. A week or two ago, I posted a video of, I think I called it Trump, the Election, and Psychotherapy. And I recently, this week, had some sessions that further demonstrated the points I made there, and I wanted to talk about them again because they're so important, they're so central to what should happen in psychotherapy, what shouldn't happen in psychotherapy, and most important, when psychotherapy is actually useful and going somewhere, and when it's not, when it's becoming what Papa Freud said, analysis interminable. He wrote a paper called Analysis Terminable and Interminable. Now, Freud may have been wrong about a lot of things, but he was incredibly right about some things, and here's one of them. And that's when therapy is, as one of my colleagues put it, a lie. When it's not really happening, you're just sort of going endlessly and maybe getting a massage and maybe feeling good, or worse, doing nothing. And that's an important distinction. So I mentioned last time that the point I made was when you're talking about Trump, if it's going somewhere to helping you learn about yourself, with the goal of helping you getting unstuck in your life, then it's useful. If you're just endlessly repeating that you're anxious and it's terrible what's happening and blah, 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 and your therapist is either agreeing or disagreeing with you, you're not going anywhere. So I had a session today that was similar to that. A guy who's in the book, actually, he gave me permission to use the name I used for him in the book, but I'm going to not do that. It occurs to me you don't really need to know who he is in the book to understand the case. Let me just present it here. He started talking about a movie that he saw, and he knows I share his love of science fiction, and the movie was The Arrival, which I haven't seen. I don't know anything about it. And he's talking about it, and I was thinking, okay, where's this going? And with a little guidance, and I make the point in the book that if you want to get unlost and unstuck in your life, you may need a guide. You may not, but often you do, and that's what psychotherapy is. With a little guidance in my questions, he was able to talk about what so grabbed him about the book, what mattered so the movie. And what he ended up saying is, it made me realize how scared I am. And this is not a new theme for us, but he saw it in a deeper, clearer way. How I live so scared and constricted, and I don't need to, and I don't want to. Now that's an important discovery, you can see. Now I made the same point last week about talking about Trump, and friends and colleagues have been talking a lot about an uptick in people calling in saying, I'm getting anxious, I need therapy. Well, you might, but I've been hearing a lot of stories that I think are terrible of how sessions are being spent commiserating about Trump. Well, you can do that with your friends. You don't need to pay the fees that psychotherapy costs for that. It's also what Papa Freud, who was wrong about many things, but also incredibly right about some important things, what Papa Freud called analysis interminable when you're doing fake therapy. So if you're talking about Trump and the goal is that you make some decisions about what you want to do about the state of the country, that's useful. But it doesn't take much in therapy. It doesn't take long. If you find yourself stuck, either your therapist is indulging him or herself talking about politics, or you're stuck yourself, and you need that therapist to help you move into a discussion of, okay, but that's Trump. We're not going to solve Trump, and we're not going to solve the country here in the consulting room. And then we discover, as I mentioned last time, and this has happened both over beers with friends and in my office, that the discovery is something deeply personal has been touched that needs to be brought out. And once it's brought out, life takes off again. You make decisions, you move on. As an example of that, look at Sandra in the book. She's early in chapter 1. And the discovery is often, this reminds me of being bullied, deeply bullied, not bullied in high school, but when I was much younger, perhaps bullied at home, or feeling bullied, marginalized, shunned, forgotten, back at a time in your life when being forgotten was life-threatening. If a 5-year-old feels forgotten, never mind the emotional distress, it can be physically dangerous. 5-year-olds can't take care of themselves. So that's the kind of deep feeling that might be being stirred up. And when you hit it, here's the important part. When you hit it, it's not just, oh, how interesting, I got in touch with my feelings. No, you got in touch with your feelings, and the result is you feel better and you function better. And that's in all the examples in the book. And it happened in this session with the patient I'm talking about the movie. Sure enough, at the end of the session, he felt clearer, stronger, saner, more grounded, and he made some decisions and he moved forward. Excuse me. Another thing that this session demonstrates, and the discussion we had last week about talking about Trump, is a question I get a lot in TV and radio interviews about the book, which is, well, Doc, if the lies are unconscious, how do we see them? How do we deal with them? It's a very good question. You see them by catching their symptoms. Think of a lake surface. There may be mountains under the lake. You're not going to see them until one of them's tall enough to poke through, and then it's just a small little bump. Take an interest in that bump, and the bump might be positive or negative. In the case of the patient I'm talking about, his being so taken by this movie that he said was actually not that great, The Arrival, is a positive bump. Gee, why did that touch me so much? And we find out it touched him for very personal reasons. A negative bump is a pet peeve, something like, I don't know what it is, but I really hate when people do this, that, or the other. I've got one from my own life I can share, which I haven't fully analyzed, and I don't really need to, but I'll share with you as far as it's gone. I've always hated the sound of heels scraping. When somebody walks, and when I was studying martial arts, I noticed that the senseis, the masters, the teachers, did that. So it's a cultural thing, it's an Asian thing. And of course, my immediate association was, oh, it's lazy and slack-jawed, and I don't like laziness. Well, it was cutting too deeply for it to be that. And then, of course, I saw that these very disciplined people did it. So why was it still irking me so much? So I let myself free associate. There's another lesson from Papa Freud. Free associate. What comes to mind as I let myself think about scraping heels? Now, by the way, the free association is what we did with Sandra, and you can see her in the book again. I keep saying the book. If you go to Amazon and type in my name, Bennett Pology, you'll find my book. The title was a mistake. I should have given it a different name, because if you type in the title, you get 100 books with the same title. In any case, the free associating, I discovered, it's reminding me of my father. He used to do that. By the way, my dad gave me permission to tell these stories. He used to do that around the house in his bathrobe. And to my young eyes, my father was huge. He was Sean Connery in his prime. And it was so disconcerting to see him shuffling around making that noise. That's as far as I've gotten with it. But the point is, you can see that it's very personal. So there's what you talk about. There's how you catch lies. Boy, I've got another entry. We'll talk another time about how that kind of exploration leads to uncovering important lies about yourself. We don't have time right now. Anything that you bring into therapy, whether it's Trump or a silly movie, if with the guidance, unless you can do it yourself, if you can let it bring you to, what is this telling me about me, about my personal experiences, the experiences most important, most formative to me, then it's useful. If it's not, then you're doing analysis interminable. You're just commiserating. If all we did, this patient and I, was chat about The Arrival, and then let our associations take us to other movies that we liked, well, we're having a nice chat, but he doesn't need to pay me my full fee for that. We can do that over a beer. He shouldn't do it with me anyway. He should be doing it with friends. Excuse me, I gotta look at my notes here, make sure I covered what I wanted to. I think I did. I think I said everything. So, enjoy the ride if you're in psychotherapy, and don't let it be interminable. And we'll talk again. Thank you for your attention. How do I shut this off?